Afternoon, Mike.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, how are you?
I'm good. We're having a big party tomorrow. Not tomorrow, I mean Saturday, this weekend. If you want to come, we're going to have quite a feast. Tofu turkey and sweet potatoes with pecans and brown sugar and a bunch of stuff. It's all on the Coexist Kirtan Center website. So if you're interested, you can come. I think Melissa, Melissa, she usually sings in the kirtan. She's going to be there. She's my bud. And also Jennifer Menhorn, you might not know her, but she came here about 5 years ago. And she brought her baby, this really young baby, like a few months old, but now she's 6. She's not going to bring the baby this time because she's only half vaccinated. She wants to be careful, So she's going to leave the baby at grandma's house. Let me see if I can share the screen here. We're on text 63, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, you probably see it now, right?
Yeah, it's up there.
All right. 63. The New Vrindavan devotees are coming to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah,
right.
I saw that.
Did you see a post in? Where did you see that post?
Either the New Vrindavan or whether it was the Kirtan Center. I don't remember where, but I did see the post that they were going to be doing the Kirtan down in Oakland, and then
well, they're doing Kirtan and book distribution. They got book distribution and going crazy now.
Good.
So that's good. It's pretty enlivening actually to see that going on every day. There's a young guy named Brandon and his friend named Sarah, who it's like they're going out pretty much every day. It's a marathon, during Christmas. And one day they're in Morgantown, the other day they're in West Liberty, usually college campuses, but they're distributing books. So that's what Prabhupada wanted more than anything. So why don't you go ahead and start with text 63?
Sure. Dad bhavita samoha samohat smriti vibramam smriti brahmashad buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. Synonyms. Krodat, from anger. Bhavati, takes place. Samoha, perfect illusion. Samohat, from illusion. Smriti, of memory. Vibhrama, bewilderment. Smriti brahmashat, after bewilderment of memory. Buddhi nasha, loss of intelligence. Buddhi nashat, and from loss of intelligence. Pranashyati, one falls down. Translation. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool.
Purport. Srila Rupa Goswami has given us this direction. Prapan chikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshibi parityago vairagyam palgu kartite. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 12258. By development of Krishna consciousness, one can know everything that has its use in the service of the Lord. Those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects, and as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain to the perfect stage of renunciation. Their so-called renunciation is falgu, or less important. On the other hand, a person in Krishna consciousness knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. For example, for an impersonalist, the Lord, or the absolute being impersonal, cannot eat. Whereas an impersonalist tries to avoid good eatables, a devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and that he eats all that is offered to him in devotion. So, after offering good eatables to the Lord, the devotee takes the remnants, called prasadam. Thus, everything becomes spiritualized, and there is no danger of a downfall. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotee rejects it as material. The impersonalist, therefore, cannot enjoy life due to his artificial renunciation. And for this reason, a slight agitation of the mind pulls him down again into the pool of material existence. It is said that such a soul, even though rising up to the point of liberation, falls down again due to his not having support in devotional service. I remember my guru, my spiritual master, said, some gurus in India, they say, somebody offers them money, they say, no, I can't have that. Money is dirty, So, but he said, if you give me money, I'll take it and give it to Krishna. So it's just, everything can be used in Krishna's service. Even Prabhupada said, you can use a typewriter, you can use missiles. He had some pretty extreme examples, but everything can be used in Krishna's service.
Yeah, once again, it seems like it's presenting that same idea that's been recurring all throughout this chapter, that you can't just like cut out or cut off material life. You can't just negate things, but it's rather the act of replacing. So it's not just like you're not enjoying these sense things, you're not cutting yourself off from the world, rather you're Krishnaizing everything that you're doing. So it's not so much about cutting stuff out as it is about a replacement.
Well, when you have a personal relationship with Krishna, everything is Krishna's, first of all. Like this came up in a morning Zoom class for the Bhakti Center the other day. Adi Purusha was giving class, and this one guy said, well, if we have these material bodies, if we're not the body, do we take care of the body if it gets sick? And he said, yeah, you can take medicine and stuff like that. But I was going to say, I didn't get a chance to say it, but I was going to say, well, first of all, it's not your body, it's Krishna's body. It's not yours. So of course you take care of somebody else's property even more carefully than you take care of your own stuff, because it's not yours to play with. You want to, it says, be healthy in this life, and use everything in Krishna's service. Utility is the principle. Everything is Krishna's, and everything in the material world can be used for Krishna's service. The only question is how best to use it. Use everything in Krishna's service that's favorable, and reject everything that's unfavorable. That's the one rule, of do's and don'ts that you have to follow. And it's pretty simple after that. And you just dovetail everything that you do for Krishna, and you just follow in the Lord Chaitanya's and the spiritual teacher's footsteps. And Lord Chaitanya is providing a perfect example of how to react to every single situation in the material world. And he will tell you, as the Lord in the heart, will tell you what to do and what not to do, what to use and what not to use, and who to associate with and what to say to them or not say. So it's just a moment-to-moment realization that comes from completely associating yourself with this movement and the disciplic succession, going all the way back to Lord Chaitanya, who can actually introduce you to a treasure house of love of God. And so that's the most valuable thing, I'll just read the next verse, I guess. Text 64. Ragadavesha vimuktais-tu vishayan indriyascharan atmavaishar vidyadhyatma prasadam agadigachati. Synonyms: raga, attachment; dvesha, and detachment; vimuktai, by one who has become free from; tu, but; vishayan, sense objects; indriyai, by the senses; charan, acting upon; atmavishvasya, under one's control; videya atma, one who follows regulated freedom; prasadam, the mercy of the Lord; adigachati, attains. Translation: but a person free from all attachment and aversion is able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom, and can obtain complete mercy of the Lord. See, it's like a football. It's like a football game. You get to football, your mind is like kicked from one end to the other. Attachment and aversion. Boga, tiaga. Boga means enjoyment. Tiaga means aversion, renunciation. So this process, one is not able to control the mind if you're always like being kicked in back and forth based on our attachments or aversions, I like this, I don't like that. But if you control your senses, then you can, if your senses are under control by your mind, and the mind is controlled by the intelligence, and the intelligence is controlled by the soul or Krishna, then you can get the mercy of the Lord, because your mind is concentrated on one place, and that's the lotus feet of Krishna. So go ahead and read the purport. Yeah.
Sure. It is already explained that one may externally control the senses by some artificial process, but unless the senses are engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is every chance of a fall. Although the person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the sensual plane, because of his being Krishna conscious, he has no attachment to sensual activities. The Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment and detachment. If Krishna wants, the devotee can do anything which is ordinarily undesirable. And if Krishna does not want, he shall not do that which he would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. Therefore, to act or not act is within his control, because he acts only under the direction of Krishna. This consciousness is the causeless mercy of the Lord, which the devotee can achieve in spite of his being attached to the sensual platform.
Yeah, it's really a very simple process. All you have to do is do what Krishna wants you to do, and just hang out with Krishna and understand what he wants, and then serve him in that way. And when you are on that platform, it's automatic. After a while, a first-class devotee does what the master wants without even being asked. Second-class devotee has to be told what to do. Third-class devotee does what he wants, and sometimes he might do what the master wants. But the thing is, when you're actually in tune with what Krishna wants, and always considering what his satisfaction is instead of our own, then it becomes very easy. Krishna, Prabhupada says in the beginning of the Bhagavad-gītā, he says, Krishna, instead of serving our own senses, see, a person free from attachment and aversion is able to control his senses. When we decide to serve Krishna's senses instead of our own senses, then everything becomes easy. We just serve Krishna, and then we're not attached anymore to attachment or aversion. We're not thinking of what I want, or how to get this, or what to do with that situation, or should I, avoid this. We're only thinking of what Krishna wants, and he always has a better idea than we do, because he's God. If we think that we have a better idea of what to do or what not to do than him, then we're pretty puffed up. So why don't you go ahead and read the Sanskrit?
Sure. Text 65. Prasada de sarva dukhanam hanir asyo pajayate prasana chetaso he asu buddhi prayavatishtate. Synonyms. Prasade, on achievement of the causeless mercy of the Lord. Sarva, of all. Dukhanam, material miseries. Hani, destruction. Asya, his. Upajayate, takes place. Prasana chetasha, of the happy-minded. He, certainly. Ashu, very soon. Buddhi, intelligence. Pari, sufficiently. Avatishtate, becomes established. Translation. For one thus satisfied, in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established.
We're getting to the end of this chapter. There's only I think 7 more verses. Maybe we'll get through it today. Go on to the 3rd chapter. Text 66. There's no purport. Nasti buddhira yuktasya na chayuktasya bhavana na cha bhava yata shantir asantasya kutashukam. Synonyms. Nasti, there cannot be buddhi, a transcendental intelligence, ayuktasya, of one who is not connected with Krishna consciousness, na, not cha, and ayuktasya, of one devoid of Krishna consciousness, bhava, fixed mind in happiness, not cha, and abhavayata, of one who is not fixed, Shanti, peace, Asantasya, of the unpeaceable, Kuta, where is, Shukam, happiness. This is a great verse. Translation: one who is not connected to the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Good.
Purport. Unless one is in Krishna consciousness, there is no possibility of peace. So it is confirmed in the 5th chapter, 529, that when one understands that Krishna is the only enjoyer of all the good results of sacrifice and penance, that he is the proprietor of all universal manifestations, and that he is the real friend of all living entities, then only can one have real peace. Therefore, if one is not in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be a final goal for the mind. Disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal, and when one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything, then one can, with a steady mind, bring about peace. Therefore, one who is engaged without a relationship with Krishna is certainly always in distress and is without peace, however much he may make a show of peace and spiritual advancement in life. Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna.
So that's the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. A non-devotee thinks he's the enjoyer, that he owns everything. Like George W. Bush said, he talked about the ownership society. Everybody should have a house, everybody should own stuff. And he thinks that he's the best well-wishing friend of everybody. But first of all, you can't own it that much, compared to Krishna. Krishna owns everything. And you're not the supreme enjoyer either. We're actually not the enjoyers at all. We're the enjoyed. And how many friends can you have? You can't have that many friends. But Krishna is the best friend of everyone. He's the proprietor of everything, and he's the supreme enjoyer. Who can enjoy more than Krishna? How can you even compete with him? He had 16,000 wives. It's just ridiculous to think you can compete with Krishna. But we come here to this material world because we want to be the enjoyer, the proprietor, and the friend. We're not either any of those things. And when we wake up to the fact that Krishna is actually the enjoyer and the proprietor and the friend, then we can have peace. Otherwise, we'll never have peace, because if we think we're the proprietor, somebody else wants that same thing. Just like if you're in a nudist colony and one girl is like way more attractive than all the other girls, then all the other guys will be competing for that one girl in the nudist colony. So then they'll be fighting. So you can't have peace in the situation where you think you're the proprietor. But if you know that Krishna is the enjoyer and the proprietor and the friend, then everybody can be peaceful. That's the peace formula. Bhagavad-gītā 529. Text 67.
I really like this idea. I mean, so like Vaikuntha, without anxiety, to have peace or to have happiness is really to be without anxiety. And as long as, one is thinking themselves in charge of things or owning things or controlling things, there's always that anxiety to try to maintain and control and run things. But when you are able to give that up and surrender and put yourself into a service position, you no longer have that same anxiety. You become without it, and then you're able to experience this sense of peace.
Yeah, I used to do that when I was like selling stuff out, for New Vrindavan. I would go out there and approach people, and if I tried to like make my own plan or say things in a certain way, if I just said what exactly Krishna wanted me to say and do what he wanted me to do, then it's like a huge weight off your shoulders. There's no more anxiety. And so what do you have to be in anxiety about if Krishna's running the show? Krishna is in our hearts, so we have a relationship with him. And, if you know that relationship, then you're completely peaceful, because, you're not striving. There's the definition of pure devotional service is anibalasita sunyam gyanakanadi nadritam, which means unmotivated and uninterrupted. Free from fruitive desires and material motivation and mental speculation. If you're free from all those things and you could just take direction from Krishna, then you will Okay, Maitreya just messaged me. Hold on. Okay, he said he'll be there the last 10 or 15 minutes. I'm just gonna give him a thumbs up here. So yeah, it's Vaikuntha. I mean, the thing is, for a devotee, it doesn't matter where he is. You know, you can be on this material world. If you're completely surrendered to Krishna, you have no anxiety anyway. You're a surrendered soul. You know, whatever happens, you take it to be Krishna's mercy, even if it's so-called bad things. You know, and if it's a good thing, then you thank Krishna for it. But if it's bad, then you think, well, I deserve much worse, but Krishna's only giving me a little taste to purify me. So in that way, you're never disappointed. You never try to change a situation, never try to, you know, avoid distress or strive for happiness. You're just completely a surrendered soul. And then there's no anxiety, because anxiety happens when you're worried about the future, right? You're trying to control things. And if you notice, like a lot of people who are controllers, they're not really very likable. You know, the people that try to control things, like even on television, I remember seeing like a character that was always like trying to manipulate people. They're not a very likable character, you know. And so it's like, if you just you know, surrender, then you don't lose your individuality. Krishna is always individual and you're an individual. But if you're trying to serve selflessly, then you're no longer hankering or lamenting for what you have or don't have, and you're just worried about Krishna's satisfaction. Like the gopis, you know, Krishna was wandering around in the forest, and there's all kinds of sharp stones and thorns, and they were worried about Krishna's soft lotus feet. And so they were like completely in anxiety about that, but they were never thinking of their own satisfaction. You know, as far as like, you know, people thinking that this is some kind of sexual thing, the gopis and Krishna, was not at all like that, because the gopis were completely one-pointedly only thinking about Krishna's, you know, service, not their own sense gratification. So why don't you read text 67?
Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano nuvid iyate tarasya harati prajnam ayornavam ivambasi. Synonyms: Indriyanam, of the senses, he, certainly, charatam, while roaming, yat, with which, mana, the mind, anuvidhiyate, becomes constantly engaged, tat, that, asya, his, harati, takes away, prajnam, intelligence, vayu, wind, navam, a boat, iva, like, ambasi, on the water. Translation: as a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence.
Purport: unless all of the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, even one of them engaged in sense gratification can deviate the devotee from the path of transcendental advancement. As mentioned in the life of Maharaj Ambarish, all of the senses must be engaged in Krishna consciousness, for that is the correct technique for controlling the mind. As there's a verse that talks about Maharaj Ambarish. He uses legs to walk to the temple, uses his nose to smell the flowers from Krishna's lotus feet, uses, you know, sense of touch to touch the devotees. He used, you know, his mind to think of Krishna, uses eyes to see the deity. You know, he's just using all of his senses 100% 24/7 in Krishna consciousness. And but even if you use one, it's more, you can actually, you know, achieve success like that. But the senses are very difficult to control. So sometimes if one of the senses becomes deviated, then it's always a chance to fall down. But if you engage all of your senses all the time in Krishna's service, then you know, like Prabhupada says in the beginning of Bhagavad-gītā, you know, you serve Krishna's senses. Krishna demands that. He demands it. But it's not like he's doing it for himself. He's doing it for our benefit, not for his own benefit. He demands that we serve his senses instead of our own. And that's mercy. It's not any kind of like fascistic edict. Somebody was saying that, like I have this license plate on my car that says, shut up and obey God. And somebody's saying that sounds like kind of like a Nazi saying, and it said, no, it's just Krishna's mercy. That's the bottom line of the Bhagavad-gītā is surrender to God, just, don't think of what you want, think of what Krishna wants. Let go and let God. So where are we? I think I'm jumping all around here. Okay, we're on text 68, right? Go ahead and read Sanskrit.
Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigurhitani sarvasha indriyan indriya arthebhyas tasya prajna pratishtita. Synonyms. Tasmat, therefore, yasya, whose, mahabaho, O mighty armed one, nigurhitani, so curbed down, sarvashaha, all around, indriyani, the senses, indriya arthebhya, from sense objects, tasya, his, prajna, intelligence, pratishtita, fixed. Translation. Can you take it up just a little bit? There you go.
Yeah.
Therefore, O mighty armed, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence.
Purport. One who can curb the forces of sense gratification only by means of Krishna consciousness, or engaging all the senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As enemies are curbed by superior force, the senses can similarly be curbed, not by any human endeavor, but only by keeping them engaged in the service of the Lord. One who has understood this, that only by Krishna consciousness is one really established in intelligence, and that one should practice this art under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, is called a sadhaka, or a suitable candidate for liberation. Go ahead. We're almost done here. Hopefully we'll finish.
Text 69. Yanisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagati samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sanisha pashyato mune. Synonyms. Yeah, what? Nisha is night, sarva, all, bhutanam, of living enemies, tasyam, in that, jagarti is wakeful, samyami, the self-controlled, yasyam, in which, jagrati, are awake, bhutani, all beings, sa, that is, nisha, night, pasyata, for the introspective, mune, sage. Translation. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage.
Yeah, especially if you're old like me. 8 o'clock's a new midnight for guys like me. You can't start a movie after 8 o'clock. And then bars are just getting started by like 10 o'clock. And when we get up, when devotees get up like 4 or 5 in the morning, everybody's sleeping in the material world. So it's actually true, literally and figuratively. Purport. There are 2 classes of intelligent man. One is intelligent in material activities for sense gratification. The other is introspective and awake to cultivation of self-realization. Activities of the introspective sage or thoughtful man are night for persons materially absorbed. Materialistic persons remain in sleep in such a night due to their ignorance of self-realization. The introspective sage remains alert in the, quote, night, end quote, of materialistic men. The sage feels transcendental pleasure in the gradual advancement of spiritual culture, whereas the man in materialistic activities, being asleep to self-realization, dreams of varieties of sense pleasure, sometimes feeling happy and sometimes distressed in his sleeping condition. The introspective man is always indifferent to materialistic happiness and distress. He goes on with his self-realization activities undisturbed by material reactions. We've got 2 more verses, I think, or 3. Go ahead.
Text 70. Puryamanam chala pratistam samudrama pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashantim apnoti na kama kami. Synonyms. Puryamanam, always being filled. Achala pratistam, steadily situated. Samudram, the ocean. Apa, waters. Pravishanti, enter. Yadvat, as. Tadvat, so. Kama, desires. Yam, unto whom. Kavishanti, enter, sarve, all, saw that person, shantim, peace, apnoti, achieves, na, not, kama, kami, one who desires to fulfill desires. Translation. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires.
You know, that just underlines what you were saying. If you have all these desires, then you can never achieve peace. Okay, here's Maitreya finally. Maitreya.
Hare Krishna.
Maitreya, are you there?
Yeah, Haribo.
Haribo. You got chores there on the farm. You got a lot of work to do. You're a hardworking man.
21 bales of hay yesterday.
Oh my God. Did you do that yourself?
All by myself. My back is killing me.
How do you do that? How old are you? You're probably
60.
like 60 something, right?
Yeah, 60 exactly.
60.
Yeah.
My mother's friend said 40's not old. 50, not old. 60, that's old. So it's like when you get that age, it's like I always said, it's like it's like a drain. You look at a drain that's draining, you pull the plug on the drain and the water goes around and around and around, and as it's getting toward the hole, it goes faster and faster. So everything speeds up, and you're about to hit the yellow lights coming on, and the red lights say, you better get your act together here, buddy. Otherwise you're gonna go down the drain and you won't be ready for it.
That's a good example. Yeah.
Engage like that. So we're almost finished here, Prabhuji. We're on text 70. We got 2.5 verses left to go. Why don't you read the purport here of verse 70?
All right. Although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during the rainy season, being filled with much more water. But the ocean remains the same, steady. It is not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limits of its brink. That is also true of a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one has the material body, the demands of the body for sense gratification will continue. The devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his fullness. A Krishna conscious man is not in need of anything because the Lord fulfills all his material necessities. Therefore, he is like the ocean, always full in himself. Desires may come to him like the waters of the rivers that flow into the ocean, but he is steady in his activities, and he is not even slightly disturbed by desires for sense gratification. That is the proof of a Krishna conscious man, one who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification, although the desires are present. Because he remains satisfied in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he can remain steady like the ocean, and therefore enjoy full peace. Others, however, who want to fulfill desires even up to the limit of liberation, what to speak of material success, never attain peace. The fruitive workers, the salvationists, and also the yogis who are after mystic powers are all unhappy because of unfulfilled desires. But the person in Krishna consciousness is happy in the service of the Lord, and he has no desires to be fulfilled. In fact, he does not even desire liberation from the so-called material bondage. The devotees of Krishna have no material desires, and therefore they are in perfect peace.
Yeah, I love this verse. It's like the rivers that enter into the ocean, it's already being filled, but always still. It's such a poetic analogy.
Yeah.
But apparently, I don't think Prabhupada realized the concept of climate change, because the oceans will go beyond its limit, the limit of its brink, sooner or later within the next 50 years. And, Florida will be underwater, half of New York. But, that's a whole different thing, He actually did predict,
demons.
he said that New Vrindavan in the future would be a tropical jungle. So he did predict that.
The devotees from Canada, when I would complain about how cold it was in West Virginia, the devotees from Canada they said, it's tropical here.
Yeah. Well, comparing, it's always a comparison. But now it's like, I was just looking at the news this morning, there's a big ski resort here east of Pittsburgh. But all the ski resorts in Colorado have like 9% of their snow. Everybody gets really upset when you take away their sense gratification. They don't care about climate change other than that,
For
really.
sure, isn't it?
I mean, Americans, like, I remember Dave Marinaswamy used to say that Americans, they're different from the Europeans. He was spent the first part of his devotee career in Eastern Europe.
Right.
And
Russia,
the Europeans are like different from Americans in that they like went through a lot of wars and a lot of stuff, they're always kind of like grave, but the Americans are like slapping on the back, and like, always jolly, and they expect a sense gratification. They're entitled to sense gratification. And when it's taken away, they just go nuts.
Huh.
Like compared to other countries,
That's right in our Constitution. We have a God-given right to pursue happiness.
Yeah, pursuit of happiness. That is total illusion. The basis of our whole, what is it? The Constitution, or is that the Declaration of Independence?
That's the Constitution.
The life.
Oh, no,
liberty,
that's the
happiness?
Declaration. Actually, no, it's the Declaration. You're right.
The first part of the Declaration of Independence.
These
Life,
truths will
liberty,
be
and
self-evident, and the truths are not at all men are created equal. Are you kidding me? That's not true at
Well,
all.
men are created equal on the spiritual platform, but nobody's equal on the material platform. And not only that, pursuit of happiness, that's the essence of illusion. What did Prahlad Maharaj like say? The whole purport of this, we were talking before, Mike and I, about how if you're like trying to fulfill desires in this material world, you're always in anxiety,
Yes, exactly.
Prahlad Maharaj.
Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami. Yeah, only the devotees are happy.
Right.
Because they don't have peace.
Prahlad Maharaj, said he gave the solution. He gave the formula for being happy. He said, what Prahlad Maharaj said about how to be happy? He said, stop trying to be happy. Because if you have any kind of desire for your own, you're not going to be happy. You'll always be in anxiety because you're hankering and lamenting. You have attachment and aversion. But if you just a person in Krishna consciousness is happy in the service of the Lord, he hasn't any desire to be fulfilled.
I was so stressed out before I joined the temple that the idea of happiness seemed a million miles away, but peace at least would be nice. And notice there's a couple of verses in the Gita where Krishna talks about peace. This verse 71 is one of them, where it actually ends with Sashanti Marigachiti, peace. And from the platform of peace, a lot of things are possible. But when you're freaked out and in anxiety, which a lot of people are now, it's a very lamentable condition. It's
well,
hard.
We just read that verse before you came on. It says, how can there be happiness without peace?
Yes, it's a rhetorical question. It's a very good question.
Yeah, that's based on the peace formula. And, you can't be peaceful if you're always striving for, everybody wants to have, they want to divide everything. This material world is full of dualities. They want to stop the distress, and they want all the happiness on one side of the table. But Emerson said in his essay on karma called Compensation, he said, it's like trying to have an inside without an outside. It's like taking your hand and parting the water, but the water reunites behind your hand. It's like having light without darkness. Everything in the material world is duality. So you can never have just happiness or just distress. It's always duality.
It's an inauspicious duality. There's duality in spiritual life too, between union and separation, but it's an auspicious spiritual duality.
Yeah, well, that's always happy though. You're not attached. You might be attached to Krishna, and you might be feeling separation, but that is all pure bliss. In fact, the separation, the so-called unhappiness, is even more intense than the happiness itself, than what than the sambandha,
And the devotees in the highest ecstasy, the gopis, they compose verses criticizing Krishna, and
they what?
They compose verses where they're sarcastic and they're criticizing Krishna, and they appear to be angry at him, and it's all part and parcel of this extremely.
Well, Krishna would rather hear that than he would like Vedic hymns.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
loves it when when somebody like gives him a hard time, or like when the coward boys say, "You were just such a big man, I'm gonna
Yeah.
kick your butt." Krishna loves that.
The acharyas are expert at churning that ocean. They'll tell it one way is the way it appears, and then they say, but there's a sarcastic way of reading this verse also from the left wing Gopi camp. And
Yeah. There's always variety, and there's unlimited variety. That's the one thing that the impersonalists can't understand. They can't understand that there's variety in the spiritual world, that there's variegatedness. And because they think that Krishna has no arms, no legs, no eyes, they try to cut off all of Krishna's limbs and his senses. And then they try to merge into like some kind of, Brahman or nothingness, whatever.
there was a sort of Mayavadi on another reading group I was in. She was sort of a neophyte Mayavadi. She was saying, well, so many of the people I know who are impersonalists seem so peaceful. What's wrong? And so we carefully described, if you love someone and you hear someone else describing them as being dumb and mute, and how would it make you feel? She slowly started understanding, oh yeah, you feel like he's being insulted.
Right. Yeah. If
Yeah,
you take it
exactly.
that way, then it becomes, it's actually offensive. It's actually, Krishna, it's offensive to Krishna because he's a person, he has feelings.
And to the devotees too. We don't like hearing our beloved described like that, as having no personality. And
yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. I mean, how can you be happy? How can you meditate on a void? How can you meditate on some kind of light? They can do that and even reach the point of liberation, but they can't be happy forever there.
well, that's
There's
why the
nothing to do.
Shantam ideas are sublime, because when people calm down a bit, then they start considering, yes, how could all the variety in this material world even come from someone who, and from a place that has no variety?
I know, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, you take about like, how can you be impersonal? We're persons, right? So how can a person be coming from a non-person?
That's the most cogent argument. Yeah.
That's saying 1 plus, 0 plus 0 equals 1. That's not even mathematically correct. And I remember Rita Ananda Maharaj, she used to say, like if you're talking about like the entire creation, and you say everything is created, if you see a piece of wood like a 2x4 in the street, somebody cut that wood. I mean, it's just common sense. Right. That's what I loved about the devotees, like this has made sense to me, other than all this other nonsense, like, everything, the Big Bang and the all these other theories that they come up with.
I remember as a kid in biology class in 10th grade in high school, watching the video of the sperm entering the egg. And I remember looking around like, this is a miracle we're watching. You understand that, right? This is an amazing system that could have never arisen by chance. And, right. When you haven't been polluted by someone trying to pollute your intelligence to make you think that it's all based on some chemical reaction, it's obvious that it's just the most amazing. And inside those things are these double helix molecules that
they have to actually
designed.
In the DNA, when the DNA separates, it gets all tangled up, and they have these like arms that take the DNA apart and then reattach it. Now, how could that happen by chance? And how's it going to evolve from one thing to another if the DNA gets tangled up and they don't have
the viruses that are causing so many problems? Those are obviously designed somewhere. There's some demons on some planet making these things. they're the most complicated.
No, Krishna makes them. Everything's made by Krishna.
Well, through the agency of some agency, a demon or a demigod. He doesn't come himself and do it.
Krishna makes the mosquitoes. He makes everything in this material world, and some people, there's always miseries in these material world: birth, death, old age, and disease. The disease is part of our training in this material world. Yes. If you think, well, why am I being subjected to this disease? Then you are actually intelligent. Otherwise, you're just an animal.
Right.
If you don't even think of that.
So, I mean, the diseases, the RNA viruses hijack the actual genetic code and change it. It's inconceivably complex the way they work.
Yeah, and just a one-celled organism. Like there's this one dude, his name was Eugene Wigner. He was a probability mathematician. He calculated, according to his calculation, he tried to figure out what was the probability of one self-replicating organism arising from a random combination of chemicals. And he came up with a figure. You know what that figure was?
0.
It's 0. That was it. And then all the evolutionists are freaking out, you know.
So that's why Krishna says in the Gita to not disturb the minds of the ignorant, because he's giving them the intelligence to have faith in that process. And all we can do is encourage them to become devotees by showing how attractive the devotional life is, how delicious the prasadam is. And when their heart changes, suddenly their intelligence will change also. But if you try to approach it from the other way around, it will never work. You're directly
you can't argue with people.
Krishna. Yeah,
you just have to do what Lord Chaitanya did. He opened the treasure house of prema to everyone. And therefore, we should just take shelter of his lotus feet.
Remember the devotee that convinced me to go on book distribution, he didn't tell me how it was what I should do as a duty and it saved the fallen souls. He just pointed at the Sankirtan devotees. He said, look who's jumping the highest in Kirtan. Wouldn't you like to be like that?
Yeah, well, that's how I became a devotee. I looked at the back of the Bhagavad-gītā magazine. I saw a picture of what was his name? The big Kirtan leader. Huh?
Vishnu Jan Maharaj?
Vishnu Jan, well, he was with the mridanga on the back of the Bhagavad-gītā. Get on the bus. Everybody you want to get on the bus? Yeah, I want to get on the bus. Come on, that sounds awesome. You know, I wanted to get on the bus with devotees. And then I looked in the back of all the books and looked at all these different places. And I saw New Vrindavan. First, I saw some place down in North Carolina. And I thought, it's not very, very interesting. But then I saw New Vrindavan, and I called him up and I said, yeah, there are a lot of people there, like 700 people. And the devotee said, yeah, it's a pretty big place. You know, he said, you got any girls there? And he said, yeah, we got girls. Come on down.
And then you became a brahmachari for years.
Yeah, I became a brahmachari. Get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It reminds me of this cartoon I saw about some monks. Some monk entered the monastery, and he said, okay, here's a schedule. You get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're fed goat cheese and lettuce. And the other guy said, what about girls? So, you know, we come from these horrible backgrounds, but somehow or other we're attracted. And that's the main thing. You know, Lord Chaitanya's movement is based on, you can't really follow. If you follow the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, you'll get the taste and you'll gradually be empowered. But without being empowered, you can't spread Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya, everywhere where he went, people were automatically chanting Hare Krishna. They couldn't help it. They started rolling on the ground. They started screaming and yelling and running around. And that's the way he spread Krishna consciousness all over the subcontinent of India. It's an amazing process. I mean, I just read the chapter where he was like going to Prayag with his buddies, and he came to a bunch of cows. He saw some cows, and he immediately thought of Krishna. Like, whatever Lord Chaitanya saw immediately reminded him of Krishna, you know. And then he heard a cowherd boy playing a flute. I mean, it was a real cowherd boy, and he was playing a flute. And they just like conked out unconscious. He fell down against a tree, and his foaming at the mouth, you know. And all of a sudden, these Pathan soldiers, these Muslim soldiers, came up, and he said, "Oh, this sannyasi here, this mendicant, has been robbed. They gave him some poison, some datura,
yeah.
And they tried to rob him, you know." But you know, fortunately, he woke up and he turned him all these Pathan soldiers. He started getting out. He got up and he started chanting and dancing, you know, as soon as he regained his consciousness. And he explained everything to the Pathans. And then he started talking to this one religious guy there, and he actually changed his mind. He was an impersonalist because all the Muslims had been affected by the Mayavad philosophy. He asked some questions about impersonal Brahman because the Muslims had the philosophy too, like the Sufis. They have an impersonalist background, you know, or influenced by the Sankaracharya Sampradaya, you know. But so he completely defeated him, and then they all became devotees. They started chanting, and they actually became mendicants. These Pathan soldiers, they all just dropped everything and became mendicants.
I forgot that part. Huh.
That is just, you know, it's just inconceivable, the power that he had, you know. And, you know, and even the Mayavadis, you know, he was so humble that they were just attracted by
Krishna and his empowered devotees are like that. Like Jesus, he just told the fisherman, drop everything and follow me. You know, he didn't give them the Bhagavad-gītā and tell them first read this. And And he was
You
so
know,
attractive.
that's
they could
missing in a
call
lot
him.
of people's life. They're looking for it. I remember reading Emerson. Emerson used to say, you know, what is that august sense that people just drop everything, their family and everything, and just follow, you know? And he said, you know, that's kind of lacking in society today, but actually the devotees have it. I mean, remember that one welder that came to New Vrindavan that one year? What's his name? But he came with his
Kashyapa
welding
was a
truck.
welder. Remember that? Varshana Swami, before he became the great Varshana Swami, he came with a bunch of welding equipment to give it all to the Swami.
No, that was another person. He had a truck and he had a welding equipment,
Yeah.
and it was all behind the truck. And he said, well, you know, because this is a southern devotee. He wasn't
Oh, I thought that was Varshana. Okay, yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, he was like he was in a
I heard
laundromat.
Radnath tell
He saw
Radnath
Bhagavad-gītā at the bottom, and he picked it up and started reading. But then
get all to the Swami.
yeah, yeah,
Guru,
he was eating a watermelon somewhere down south, and he actually threw away the rind, and then he decided he wanted it again, so he fished it out of the wastebasket and started eating again. But he saw this Bhagavad-gītā in the bottom of the wastebasket, and he started reading it. And so he came to New Vrindavan. He gave away all his welding equipment and his truck. He said, well, what are you giving this for? He said, oh, I'm giving it to Swami. He said, well, where did you find out about that? I read that there in the Bhagavad-gītā. And he said, by the way, there might be about $5,000 underneath the truck seat. So
Who is that devotee? Who is that?
I can't remember his name now.
Oh.
But it'll come to me for a while. But yeah,
That's right. I heard Radnath tell that story. He had like 2 truckfuls of equipment.
He came with a whole bunch of stuff. And that just shows the power of Lord Chaitanya's philosophy and the Bhagavad-gītā, you know. Devotees are coming to Pitt campus this weekend, and they're going to go to our kirtan tomorrow night. We're going to have a kirtan in Lawrenceville, which is not too far from campus, but we have that every Thursday night. And they're going to be doing book distribution and Harinam on campus. They're doing that every day pretty much because it's a marathon. And then they're going to, come to, we're going to have a party actually also. Too bad you don't live here. You could come too.
Yeah,
we're going to have a big feast.
Tell Das I said hardball.
Das lives actually in Hawaii right now.
Oh, no kidding. Huh.
Yeah, he moved to Hawaii with his wife.
Wow.
I worry about him though, because neither one of them are vaccinated. His wife is like a foodie now. She used to be like a really great cook. When I first went out with him in '85, I mean, there were newlyweds then. She would make like unbelievable things for before we'd go out, you know, like pineapple turnovers and stuff. She used to be a deity cook, but now she's like a foodie and she thinks she knows everything about food and nutrition. And she's an anti-vaxxer now. And she says, well, the virus is not going to come to Hawaii, you know, like why? Hawaii is like an island, you know. Oh, right.
Yeah, young people.
Where'd you hear that? Dr. Fauci? I don't think you heard that from Dr. Fauci.
Of course, the least affected people are young people who have good diets. They may not even know they have it, or just it goes over like a cold. But
a lot of people think that they're going to be unaffected because they eat properly. Like this one devotee is saying, "Oh, well, you eat berries," you know. Well, that
helps.
That it helps, but it's not like a vaccine, you know.
I mean, I got the flu a few years ago and it almost killed me. And I thought no one had to tell me to go get vaccinated. I thought, you know, my son's he just turned 15. I'm not ready to die. I got to stay around longer. So
yeah, for sure.
I don't want to talk to anybody about it. It's no one's business.
Yeah, I know. I don't talk about vaccines. I don't talk about vegans. I don't talk about,
There's a devotee that wrote a whole book about it. What a waste. He wrote a whole book against anti-vaxxing. I'm like, where did Prabhupada say that that's what you should do with your time in your life? I don't understand. He's an initiated.
You only got a few amount of time in your life. Why would you waste your? Who wrote a book on that?
The one who sings in that falsetto. So Vyasaki, he's written a couple of books. They're bestsellers on Amazon. And I'm sure if I challenged him, he would say, well, you know, you do that for work. That's what I do for work. You know, my heart's not really in it, but it sells well. You know, so. But
yeah, he wrote a book on against the vaccine or for?
Yeah, against it.
Of Vyasaki. He's the Kirtaniya, right?
Yes, that's right. Kirtaniya.
Yeah, there's so many devotees that are completely bewildered. Like, you know, I don't even want to mention any names, but some people said, "Oh, well, this vaccine has killed so many people, And I said, well, name one. Name one.
I mean,
person
even
that
devotees
actually-
like Bhaktisiddhanta Swami, I went to his website or his Facebook page. It's all filled with this conspiracy theories and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
devotees that used to talk about
devotees
Krishna,
are really
now they're all
susceptible to
bewildered.
that kind of thing. It's very sad, actually. But anybody that's a little bit like into like food and nutrition, and especially spiritual people, sometimes they get affected by these conspiracy theories. You can tell the kind of people, I can almost guess who's going to be an anti-vaxxer when I meet them. But I actually try to invite them to say something on my Facebook page so I can block them. I'm totally into blocking people.
Yeah, I am too. So I have a very
Because
curated experience.
I don't want to argue with anybody.
Yeah,
I got
no,
an
I
argument
need
with
I need
somebody-
Facebook to be a place where I get spiritual inspiration. and
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just,
can't have it become
I
political.
post all my audiobooks on there. I don't want anybody anti-vaxxer coming on and saying, stuff like that. It just disturbs the mind, we
I
want
have another account in my legal name where I can talk to my old friends and my family. And if anyone, and I forget to check it sometimes, but the devotee one, I've got it curated and I blocked all the people who are nonsense. And now whenever I go on there, it's just like a spiritual inspiration.
Yeah, it's like an oasis, isn't it?
Yeah. You
Yeah,
can do
that's
that.
perfect.
When people
You gotta-
criticize
you gotta-
social media, I think you're just not doing it right. There's a way to do it where you don't have to put up with all that nonsense.
Emerson said, you pick your companions, I'll choose my own. And if we follow the truth together, we may come out safe at last.
So then when Krishna talks about living in a secluded place, that's what he's talking about.
Right. And so you can pick your association. It's very important. And one of the ways that Lord Chaitanya said is to be a devotee, the first thing you have to do is, asat sangha. You want to get yourself away from asat sangha or anybody who's involved in politics or argument or logic or anything like that. You want to stay as far away as possible from those kind of people.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, I used to be an activist, but now I'm an inactivist. I in the early 2000s, I was in Maya, I was actually the coordinator for MoveOn.org in the Greater Council of Pittsburgh. And I had a megaphone. And now that megaphone, I used to go out and try to, go for single payer healthcare and in 2009. But now that megaphone is hanging in the basement. It's all full of cobwebs and dust.
There's intellectual hooks and all those things. It's just, once you get a taste for hearing and chanting, they don't hold.
Oh yeah, it's nothing compared to it. And not only that, it's like when I was in Move On, I even found out for myself by experience that even liberals can be assholes. And not only that, it's like you're completely in anxiety because it's like us against them. Prahlad Maharaj is like, okay, these are my friends and these are my enemies. And, a political thing, it's just, you're always in anxiety.
You're a self-realized devotee,
breakdown.
so you just had, one last little thing that Krishna had to show you that, even that, it's, it's good temporarily, but eternally, it's not where it's happening.
Well, what actually broke my detachment for politics? I read something by Hridayananda in the 10th canto, I believe. He said, like people, it's for the people, by the people, for the people, right? And that's the democracy. And so he was saying, this is total illusion because material nature is actually controlling everyone. You get that?
Yeah.
Material nature is the one that's in control, and all these people are thinking that they're in control, but they're not controlling anything. So, unless you have self-conscious, self-realized soul in charge of and then a Brahmin who's actually in charge of who's advising the Kshatriyas, there's no possibility that it will just be Shudra.
The Bhagavad-gītā is so important. Krishna talks about all these things. It's just in such a sublime way, that everything's being controlled by the modes of nature. And even if you try to take shelter of the modes, they're competing with each other too. So there's nowhere to take shelter except for Krishna.
You know what? We're way beyond time here, but we're going extra time because you joined late. Mike, I apologize for not letting you into the conversation here, but we're going to start on text 71. We've got 2 verses left here in the second chapter. And
Very
so
cool.
next time we'll start on the second chapter because we'll probably get cut off here at any minute. But I'm glad we'll be able to talk with you, Maitreya, and
Hare Krishna, nice to see your
not
smiling
too
face. Dr.
exhausted
Mike.
from all your
Hare
working.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for having.
Haribo. Haribo, Mike.
Hare Krishna.
See you next time. Friday.